Well, good evening. I want to welcome you to the broadcast. I believe we are broadcasting loud and clear, and I think I've gone through my checklist. Sometimes I've always wanted to be an airplane pilot, and I'm learning that you really need checklists. In fact, a lot of you are probably watching, and I know right off the bat you may be saying, I've had some weird things going on. I was talking to a student the other day who logged in and was kind of getting bumped out of one of the chapters, and unfortunately or fortunately I was uploading some new content, so and occasionally I'll upload something and I realize I forgot to, there's all these intricate things with an online real estate school. So I'm developing a checklist and I'm trying to work out all these little glitches that sometimes come up, but actually I think things are moving pretty smooth, so hopefully. Well, my name is John Mayfield. I'm the owner of Global Real Estate School, and I'm your school administrator and your instructor. And yes, I have a real passion for the school and to help you pass the exam. So I'm always, I started the school. We're probably a year and a half into the online portion of the school. Now, don't panic. Some of you might be saying, "You mean you've only been teaching for a year and a half?" So I got my license in 1978 at the age of 18, so you can do the math. But I started teaching pre-licensed real estate school back in 1987, believe it or not, because we actually had no local pre-licensed real estate school in our area. So I wanted to start a school, and they gave me this paperwork that was like so thick, and I threw it away the first time. True story. I thought, this is ridiculous. And then I thought, no, I'm going to go through page by page and just fill it out, have my secretary retype it, and we'll just put together the information. So I started teaching live courses in 1987, and in 2003 my business had grown. My real estate business was growing. I had 3 offices and a number of agents, and actually had just had one of the first online continuing education companies back in the late 1990s. And so I've always had a passion for technology and education and learning, but I kind of got rid of my stuff and quit teaching pre-licensed school back in 2002, I believe, because I was doing a lot of keynote speaking and training for organizations and continue to do that today. And my wife said to me a couple of years ago, you really need to put your online school up. So I did that, and kind of leading up to this story, we're right at a year and a half, and I have worked a lot of the bugs out last year, and things were just going very smoothly, and they're still really going extremely smooth, I think. I mean, if you have a problem, please let me know. But what I wanted you to understand is this last, probably starting in January or so, I just wanted to really try to fine-tune the course and add new content. And I'm always adding new questions. I started adding audio feedback. And so I'm working on the school weekly, and I make a lot of changes and updates. And it gets a little complicated, but there's a lot of things you have to do in order to make sure the modules perform correctly. So needless to say, if you have a problem, reach out to me. We'll fix it. If you see a typo or a grammatical error, let me know. If occasionally you think a question that might not be right, let me know, because again, I'm adding new questions. Yesterday I added probably a good 15 questions to the fair housing module. There's a lot of good questions that I was able to come across through another school, so I've included those. And today I added probably 10 or so in the finance chapter that I just wanted to include for you. So, occasionally I could have something keyed wrong. I try to double check, and hopefully things are going okay. All right, so we want it to be fun and like a live classroom, so just wanted to give you a little background on that. But I I love the school and I have a real passion for it. And I really appreciate the kind comments and feedback that I get from everyone. So thank you for that. I am recording this, so I usually, what I do when I record it is sometimes I might leave the front end on where we went over some of this information. Sometimes I take it off and edit it, but we'll be recording it. I will put it in the study sessions area of your course library, so be sure and check those out. And I have some previous study sessions where we cover a lot of math. If you're having trouble with math, I think that's a good place for you to go and watch some of the previous study sessions. Also, I just kind of want to remind you to, a lot of times I'll get a text message or an email from some of the students questioning a math problem or something. I'm trying to include video explanations to all the math problems. So be sure and watch those math video explanations. I know in the last couple of weeks I've had several students who have sent me emails questioning things, and I get concerned because I think, oh, is something wrong? And so when I go in and I check it and and there's usually always a math explanation video with that. And when I watch the math video that I've attached, I feel like I go through the information step by step. So those are there to help you out, so be sure and watch those if you can. But I do want you to know, please reach out to me if you have a question or you think you don't understand something, or you think maybe I did something incorrectly, because I had a student just 2 weeks ago and I was off on the math a little bit, and I went back and worked it, and I agreed with him I needed to fine-tune that a little bit. Last night I had one of my students up in South Dakota, and she had sent me an email, and the information was there, but I didn't explain the trickiness to that question. And so I always appreciate feedback because I can tighten everything down for you. Well, I hope you're doing good and studying. We've got a lot of new students who've joined us, and we have students in Kansas, South Dakota, Missouri, soon to be Hawaii. I'll be able to say aloha. How about that? That's my goal before the end of the year. And we're working on a couple of other states. I'm hiring a person to come on board and help me out. And I'm really almost at a point where I need a full-time customer service support person. So anyway, we're growing, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the kind feedback. So today, we are going to work on some math problems, and we're going to be able to go right up here to the board and work some problems. And we are also going to be able to go right over here and work some problems on the laptop. So we'll be taking a look at some math problems. If you have a pen and paper, get that out. If you want to just sit back and watch, you can do that as well. Either way is fine with me. It's easier for me to do the math problems on our study sessions because we have students from several different states, and sometimes I can't really get into the specific state material, although now that I have my studio set up downstairs, I may be doing more of those through the week, little snippets of information specific to your state, and then I can push those out to the students in those states. So we'll be doing that for you. But tonight we're going to just work on some math problems and take a look at those, okay? So let's get going. I'm going to come up here and go back over to my iPad. I will be writing at an angle, so and I'll go up to the board too, so we have a couple of views and kind of make this as enjoyable as we can. Well, these are commission math problems. They love to include a couple of these on the examination, and I think it's really important that we understand and know how to work these and go through these. If you have not watched the Math Made Easy, or you've not watched that first introductory math problem about my T formula, it's not mine, it's been around for a long time. We'll be working that on some of these, so I'll try to explain that as well. The first question here says, Mary Smith is interviewing agents to list her property. She has the following quotes from two different companies. XYZ Realty says they will charge 7%, and ABC has told Mary they'll charge her 5.5%. Remember, commissions are always negotiable. Let's come back over here for just a second. Commissions are always negotiable. And what else do you need to know about commissions for the exam? You'll get this question, trust me. Commissions are always paid to who? To your broker. And then your broker will pay you. So, two things I want you to understand and know here. Commissions are always negotiable. They're negotiable between brokers and brokers, brokers and sellers, and they are negotiable between brokers and their agents in their company, okay? So Mary's interviewing a couple of different companies. They're both giving her different rates. That's okay because we know commissions are negotiable. We also know that listing agreements and a buyer's agency agreement is just a buyer's listing agreement, okay? A listing agreement, seller's listing agreement, or a buyer's agency agreement. Those types of agency agreements, and don't panic if you haven't gotten to this part yet, just remember this and take a note. Listing agreements and buyer agency agreements are between the broker and the client or principal, seller or buyer. Which means this, I'm a salesperson for XYZ Realty. I go out and get a listing with some very good friends of mine. We've been friends for years. They sign a listing agreement with me. Who is that listing between? It's between my good friends and my broker, not me. I'm just a salesperson, remember, in that example? So if I die, if I leave, if I abandon or do whatever, or go off and leave, is my listing agreement now void between my very good friends and my broker whom they've never met? And the answer is no, it's not void. Why? Because listing agreements, buyer agency agreements, seller listing agreements are between the broker and the client, not the salesperson. So just wanted to kind of throw in some things for you to remember there. So we've got two different companies giving two different commission rates. If Mary's home sells for $225,000, how much money will she save if she lists her property with ABC Realty? Well, this is basically just two T problems. And so the first T problem, and remember, I'm going to put my math symbols on here. The first T problem, this is total, this is percent, and this is part. We're solving for commission. Remember, you'll always have two variables out of the three. So 225,000. And what's the commission for the first company? 7%. So we're going to put 7%, or we're going to move our decimal over two places, and that will be 0.07. So so our math tells us to multiply 225,000 multiplied by 0.07 gives you your part, or $15,750. Okay? Now let's do another T problem. This time we have the same sales price, don't we? $225,000, but this time we have 5.5%. Or if we move this two places over, we get 0.055, right? Now our math is still to multiply 225,000 times 0.055 equals $12,000 $375. Now the question wants to know, how much will she save if she lists with ABC? ABC is down here, right? And XYZ's over here. We want to know how much she's going to save. So all we have to really do is take $15,750 and subtract $12,375, and we get $3,375, which is answer B. Okay, so just a simple math problem. I wanted to throw a softball to you before we got into some tougher, a little more challenging math problems. But we're just working 2 T problems, and then we get both total commissions, we subtract, and we're able to solve the problem. So let's go on to the next one. In this one, a property sold for $235,000, and the selling broker's half of the commission was $8,225. What was the commission? Now, there's a couple of key things in here. The property sold for $235,000, and the selling broker's half of commission was $8,225. Our first step is going to take the $8,225 and multiply it times 2, because I would like to know what was the total commission. And it's $16,450. Now, this is total commission. I want to point one thing out to you, is that I have a little Switcher Studio app with my iPad, so I'm able to kind of move from different camera angles. So occasionally you might see my finger go up to press the, I have 2 iPads, and I'm reflecting to my MacBook, and I have my iPhone, but it's going to be over there for another device. So I apologize if occasionally you see my hand go up to make a switch, but just kind of understand what's happening there. And it's a pretty cool little app, because I can even run commercials and play videos in between, and I can put up my my little items there if I want to put up an item, an overlay, I guess you could say. So I want to point out something right here that I wanted to come back over and just visit with you, so you're not staring at the same screen all the time. You need to label everything really good. You're going to get some scratch paper on for the exam. You can't, I had a question this week from one of the students about a calculator. I would get a good size calculator. Sometimes I've had students in my live classes, they would like buy these little tiny, calculators, and they're using a pencil, and I'm like, really? Don't do that. Get a nice size calculator. Now, you don't want a jumbo, size, but, get a good size calculator that you can see the numbers with. And the other thing you want to know is that you can't have a financial calculator or a scientific calculator or anything that's going to be able to program a lot of stuff. They will take that away from you. Cannot take a cell phone in your purse. They'll lock all that up for you. So, and believe it or not, there have been some students recently in St. Louis who were caught cheating. Here's what I want to tell you. If you get caught cheating on the exam, just forget a career in real estate, because they will never issue you a license. I mean, they know you're going to be going in people's homes when they're not home, and they really take this seriously. So I couldn't believe that, but I was told recently by the head of the real estate commission that they've had some students that they've caught going into the testing center with crib notes and things, trying to cheat for the exam. So don't do that. But get you a nice size calculator and label everything on your paper, okay, when you're working the math problems out. I may not be able to do that all the time here, but I'm telling you, you need to take your time, label the information, and make sure that you can understand what's what as you go through the math problems, okay? So this is total commission right here, this $16,450. Now, the next phase, it wants to know what was the commission rate. Well, if I draw out my T problem, remember this is total, this is our rate, and this is part. Well, if they want to know what the rate is, we all automatically know what we're solving for, don't we? The next thing is, well, what goes where? We've got a sales price of $235,000, and now we know the total commission, don't we? Remember, total is also the bigger number. Part is what? The smaller number. Always goes on top. Well, which is bigger and which is smaller? I think 16,450 is a smaller number. 225,000 or 35,000, pardon me. I'll make that into a 35,000. 235,000 is the bigger number. And so what does our math tell us to do? It says we divide. So if you have one on the top and one on the bottom, you divide. So put this in your calculator first, 16,450, press the divide button, and then put in 235,000, and you should get 0.07. And when you move that 2 decimal places over, it's 7%. And so the answer is D, as in David, okay? Good job. All right, we're going to keep moving on here. I wish I could take some questions. Unfortunately, through YouTube, I'm not able to. My phone's hooked up there, so if you text me, I've got it on airplane mode. But you can email me at the conclusion of the class or give me a call and we can talk at that point, okay? Let's go on to the next question here. When Larry Davis listed his property, he agreed to pay a 7% commission. The property sold for $190,000. If the listing agent was paid 2% and the selling agent was paid 1.5%, how much was the broker paid after paying his agents? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You could this is probably the easiest way to do this, is you agreed to pay 7% right here, okay? And the property sold for $190. So I know that. So when I work my T problem over here, I'm going to put my sales price down here. Now, we want to know how much was the broker paid after paying his agents. Well, what did he agree to pay the selling agent? 2%. So let's subtract 2%, and that gives us 5%. And he agreed to pay the selling agent 1.5%. And so that gives us 3.5%. Now, I have gone way over my limit. I'm going to move my T problem so we're not confused here. So that's what the broker is going to earn, right? Total commission, 7%, minus the listing agent's fee, 2%. That gives us 5, right? Minus the 1.5% to the selling agent, because they were paid 1.5, so that gives us 3.5%. Now let's work our T problem. I'll bring this down a little bit. We know the sales price was $190,000. Do we know the rate now? Yes, it's 0.035. It's 3.5%, but when I move that decimal over, it's 0.035. So we're solving for the broker's commission. And what does our math tell us to do when we have both the bottom numbers? To multiply. So 190,000 times 0.035 will give you $6,650. Okay? Good job. All right, let's go over to the next one. Susie listed her property with XYZ Realty that charges a flat fee of $2,995 to list the property. If Mike, an agent with XYZ Realty, sells the property, the total commission paid is $2,995. However, if an agent from another company brings the buyer that purchases the property, the owner agreed to pay that company a 3% commission. That's called a variable commission rate. Right now, we have a pretty hot real estate market, and listings are kind of hard to come by. And so what a tactic, I shouldn't say a tactic, but a strategy, maybe sounds better, that some real estate agents will use is they will say to the seller, we have a variable commission rate. If I sell it or my office sells it, we only charge you X percent. Remember, commissions are negotiable. Let's say I might tell the seller, if I sell it or someone from my office sells it, we will only charge you 4%. However, if we co-broke it with another company, we'll have to charge you 6%. Well, it becomes very important on a variable commission rate if you're on the other end of that transaction. So let's just say I have this listing and it's a variable commission rate. So I've told the seller, look, if I sell it, someone in Mayfield Real Estate sells it, we're just charging you 4%. But if somebody outside my office, I'm just going to say Becky, if Becky, if you're watching down in Springfield, if Becky sells it, Becky's with another company, then Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I have to charge you 6%. Why? Because my company still has to collect a fee, and we are going to have to pay a cooperating fee. So it's kind of advantageous. It's a variable rate because if I happen to sell it, the seller's not charged a lot of money. If another agency sells it, then we've got to charge the full rate that we normally charge. Now, why is that important for Becky? Let's say it's a hot market, right? Let's say I'm writing a contract on my listing tonight, and Becky is too, and it's listed for $100,000. I have to let Becky know through the MLS, and if Becky asks me as well, that there's a variable rate. Why does Becky need to know that information? Because I have to tell Becky that it's a 4% rate through my company, because Becky's going to tell her clients, because she represents the buyers, look, if we offer $100,000, Mayfield's client's going to have to pay 6% commission. So that's $6,000. So the seller's going to net how much? $94,000. Now I haven't taken closing cost or anything like that, but I just want you to get the figure. And Becky's going to tell her clients, if you offer $100,000, Mayfield's people are only going to net $94,000. He has a variable rate commission, so if his buyers offer $100,000, they're going to net $96,000. So Becky's going to try, if her people really want the home, she's going to try to get them to offer above the list price, contingent upon an appraisal, the property appraising out, so that her buyers are more competitive with multiple offers, okay? Always want to put your best foot forward. But I just wanted to kind of break out. I don't know if they're covering that on the real estate examination, but just understand that you can have a variable rate And most of the time you must disclose that to the other party involved. And know the strategy that it can be advantageous for you to get a listing by pitching to the seller that, hey, if I sell it, my commission rate's going to be a lot less for you. So just a couple of things to think about there. So in this example, it's a 3% if somebody else sells it. So an agent from Mayfield Realty, I got creative there, didn't I, presented an offer of $425,000. If the offer is accepted, what is the total commission the owner will pay? Okay? Now, let's think about this. And I'm going to get a drink of water. And I'm going to go up to the board here so we can do something a little bit differently and talk about that. So you have to read this problem carefully because there's some information in there, and you might want to just try to work one T problem, and you want to go a little deeper than that, okay? So how much will Mayfield Realty receive for their part? 3%. The seller agreed to pay 3%. So it's just a T problem. I like to go ahead and put my math symbols up there. So it's $425,000 is the sales price. That's always going to be down here, our total. We're solving for the part. That's what we're solving for, the commission. And do we have the rate? And the answer is yes, it's 3%, or we move our decimal over, it's 0.03. Now, what does our math tell us to do? It says multiply, right? So 425,000 times 3% will give us $12,750. That's the commission for Mayfield Real Estate. Now go back and read the question though. Let's go back and read that. It says, Susie listed her property with XYZ Realty that charges a flat fee of $2,995 to list the property. If Mike, who's an agent with XYZ Realty, in other words, Mike's in the same company as Susie, if Mike sells the property, the total commission paid is $2,995. However, if an agent from another company brings the buyer that purchases the property, the owner agreed to pay that company a 3% commission. An agent from Mayfield Realty, that's not XYZ, presented an offer of $425,000. So they're going to get how much? Mayfield Realty is going to get this amount, but Susie's company, XYZ, still has to get their share, right? So we've got to add $2,995, and when we add that, we get a total of $15,745, I believe is the correct answer. $15,745, because the question says over here, right here, what is the total commission the owner will pay? Not the total to Mayfield, but the total commission. And so the total commission the owner will pay is this right here, $15,745. The fee to the selling company, Mayfield Realty, and the fee to Susie's company, XYZ. So both of those give you the total of $15,745. All right, so you've got to really have to read those questions. One of the questions last night was interesting. I had a student that wrote me a question. Julie, you might be watching. And I was like, oh man, because Julie's really sharp, and I know she's found a couple of little things for me, and I appreciate it. But when Julie told me that, I thought, oh man, do I have a mistake? So it wasn't at my computer, but when I got there, I pulled it up and I watched the video, and the question said it was about the lender has determined that the buyer would need, pardon me, the seller would need to net 184,000 and some change, which included the closing cost. And then they turned right around in the problem and they gave you the closing cost. And so I think what Julie did was she was confused because she was adding the closing cost. It wasn't coming up with the right number. She got it wrong. But if you read the question, it said that the closing cost were already included in that 184.5. So you got to read those questions. They can be tricky and they can trip you up. And that question, if you didn't read that carefully, that kind of question's designed to make you go for the first answer, the Mayfield Commission, and forget about the 2009-95 that Susie's supposed to get. And so just take your time, read them very carefully and read them a couple times and make sure you know what they want you to answer, because that's a free question right there. But I'm telling you what, a lot of students will miss that question. Okay, let's go back over here to the next question. And it says, when Bob and Juanita Jones sold their home, they paid a 6% commission. Their check after the commission paid was $470,000. Well, that should say what was the selling price, not Rice. That must have been an autocorrect. I meant price of their home. I'll have to fix that. But you know what we're talking about here. So what was the selling price of their home? Well, this, and I'm going to go up to the board here and work this for you. This is the only time that we mess up the T problem, okay? Seller net problems. My daughter, who went through my school and passed the test, was having a challenge with this. But she just had to get it in her head that anytime you see a question where they're asking a seller net, or in this case, they're asking what was the selling price of their home, we're kind of working it backwards. You have to take and manipulate the T formula a little bit, okay? So here's what we want to do here. I'm going to draw the T formula, and this is part, this is total, and this is percent right here. Now, in this example, we're trying to find out what was the sales price of the home. In the problem, if we go back and look at the problem here, it says the check after their commission was paid was $470,000. What was the selling price of their home? So let's think about this. They received a check, I'm going to just put that right up here, of $470,000. So that's the check they got at closing, but the question wants to know what's the selling price. Well, which one of those would be larger? The selling price or the check that they received at closing? I think it would be the selling price, wouldn't it? So they want to know what the selling price is, so we know we're solving for total. So the 470,000 goes in the part category. And here, do we put 6% in because that's the commission rate that they charged? And the answer is no. And here's why we don't put 6% in. Because 470,000 is 94% of something. How did I get 94%? This, the sales price, is 100%, correct? So if I take 100% and I subtract the commission amount, which is 6%, it will give me 94% or 0.94. So when you look at this problem, you just have to tell yourself that the check they received at closing is 94% of something. So in this case, we are going to, that's the only time we modify this bottom number is on seller net problems. So what is our math symbol? It's divide. This goes in your calculator first. You press the divide button second, and then you put in 0.94 and hit equal, and you should get an answer that is $500,000. Now, I had one of my students that told me the other day she didn't pass the test. By the way, just as a side note, for Missouri, I received my June pass rate results, and they weren't great, but they were very good. They were much, much higher than the state average. State average was like 26%. I was right at 50. Last month we were at 55%. That is first time students passing both parts of the examination, national and state, first time. I know that's not great, but let me tell you what, there were some schools that had 0 students pass, and there were many who were, who were below the state average of 26%. Now, before you get all freaked out and discouraged, let me just tell you what, that's why I'm tightening my school down as best I can, and I'm adding new things, and I'm putting information in there because I want my school, I want those pass rates to go as high as we can get them. I want all of you to pass the test. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is, and I'll give you the first and foremost reason why I think students are not passing the test the first time. But I was talking to this student, and she might be on the call tonight, I don't know, but she told me, she said, you know, I saved the math to the end, and she said, I just gave up. She said, my mind was fried and I just gave up. And she said, I just went through and put some answers down. And she missed it by like 2 questions. And, you know, here's what I want to tell you on this. If this looks challenging to you, all you have to do is go in the back door on this. I mean, you could take each answer, because there's an answer, A, B, C, D, and E, multiply it times 6%, and then subtract the commission rate, and one of them's going to hit 470, and you got your answer. Okay? I mean, sometimes I call it going in the back door. Sometimes I can't figure out the logical way to work it, but for some weird unknown reason, I know how to take each answer and work it backwards until it fits. It takes a little more time because you're having to do A, B, C, and D, but one of those are going to fit and work. So what I'm saying is, don't give up. You know, if anything, you've got 2.5 hours, ask to take a break, get up, you know, clear your head out a little bit, go to the restroom, stretch your legs, you know, do some stretches, and then go back in and, you know, go after the test some more. Don't just throw some answers in, because that won't do you any good, okay? But this is how we have to work that. Hopefully that made sense. Again, you can go in the back door if you need to, but I just want you to know that I don't want you to give up on the problems, and I want you to, you know, something like this is a free one. You definitely don't want to throw these away. Now, let me just go back very quickly, because part of our study sessions, I feel, should be about me, just as I would with a live class, preparing and helping you pass the test. And I told my wife the other day, I said, I really think I know why some students are not passing the test. And I'm just going to be very honest with you and tell you that I know many of you think you've studied hard and that you're prepared for the test. And so my advice to you is study hard and then study a little bit harder, okay? What you think is studying hard it's not going to cut it to pass the test. And I hate to be that. You can pass this test, don't get discouraged, but it's designed to weed out people who think they're just going to go in and be able to, go through my school and do a little bit of light reviewing and read through it's a tough test. So if you study hard and you study a little bit harder, and I kind of hate to use this analogy, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. Sometimes I show houses. I've been doing this for 40 years. Sometimes I set an appointment up to go show a house, and I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, this isn't showable. But I can tell that to the homeowner, they think they've cleaned their house. Does that make sense? And maybe that's a bad analogy, but I'm down in my basement right now, and I want to tell you what, I think my basement's clean. It's an organized mess right now. Some of you would come down in my basement and say, holy cow, they need to do some straightening and cleaning up down here. You know what I mean? We've got to, if you're going to clean your house, you got to take it to the next degree that you've never been there before as cleaning your house. That's the same way with this test. You've got to study hard and you've got to study a little bit harder, okay? Now, the students are doing that, and I can tell the ones, because they're sending me text messages, they're questioning a lot of things, they're asking for help, they're going back through modules over and over, and they're passing the test, okay? Study hard and then study a little bit harder. So I just want to give you that little bit of information, and I also wanted to just, remind you not to give up on those math problems. Try to go in the back door, do whatever you can to get that right. Okay, let's go over to the next problem. So this one, Rick and Kathy, oh gosh, another typo, John Mayfield, sold their condo and paid a 6% commission. I guess I could put that off on my glasses and eyesight, getting older. So Rick and Kathy sold their condo and paid a 6% commission to John Davis, the selling broker. Again, I'm getting creative because that's my middle name. If Rick and Kathy's net was $200,000, what was their sales price? Okay, so in this case, it's just another T problem. We're solving for the sales price, so we know we're solving here. 6% commission is going to go where? It's going to go right here, but remember, this is another seller net problem. We're working it backwards, so we're going to do 100%, subtract 6%, and that's going to give us 94% or 0.94. Now, what was the net? If Rick and Kathy's net was $200,000, that's going to go on top. What was the sales price? Well, what does our math tell us to do? Divide. And again, just thinking in terms, 200,000 is 94% of something, of the sales price, right? So 200,000, this goes in your calculator first, hit the divide button, 0.94 equals $212,765.95. That should be 65 right there to B. Good. All right. Couple more and we're going to be done for tonight. After closing expenses of $550 and a 6% commission was paid, Bob Carr received a check for $149,850. What was the sales price of the property? Well, in these problems here, you always need to take the net, which is $149,850, and add your expenses. So expenses were how much? $550. And when we add $149,850 and $550, we get $150,400. Now we can work the T problem. Notice they gave us answer A up here, but that's not our answer. We still got to do some work. Because what's the $150,400? That is the true, that's where we've got to work our figure off of. Now here we have 100 minus the commission rate, which is 6%. So that gives us 94% or 0.94. Our math tells us to divide. So 150,400 goes in your calculator first. Hit the divide button. Then put in 0.94. And that will give you $160,000. And that's your answer. Now, here, let me come back over here and visit with you again. On your math, take a problem like this and check your numbers. In other words, take 160,000 times 6%, and you're going to get the commission rate. Subtract that from 160,000, that's going to give you an amount. And then subtract the expenses, $550, and what should you get? You should get $149,850. Double check your math. You don't want to miss out on these math problems. You definitely need to double check. I had a couple of students just this week, and this is for July, and I hated that because today I got an email, and the other day they both missed it by one question. Now, here's another piece of advice for you for the test. Do not change your answers. I should get right in there very close and say, do not change your answers, okay? It is a proven fact that if you've been studying and preparing, your gut feeling is normally the best answer. There's something about our intuition that is very, very, very predictable or accurate. My daughter did not pass the exam, and when we were driving back the first time, she was reading me some questions, and I told her the answers, and she said, "Oh, Dad, that's what I put." And I thought that was it, but I went back and changed my answer. She did that on like 3 or 4. And I said, "Ann, don't change your answers. You can't do that." So just don't change your answers. Go with your gut feeling, I'm telling you. Now, that only applies if you've studied very hard. If you haven't studied hard, then it's not going to do you any good. Just if you want to change your answer, you can. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't. I would stay with your gut feeling and go with that. So I wanted to mention that because that's very, very important. I mean, extremely important. And I don't know how many times I talk to students who say, "I had that one and I changed it." And I've done that myself, but I'm just telling you, we got to stay away from doing that because it is a proven scientific fact that your gut feeling a lot of times is the best response there for you to do. I wanted to mention one other thing there. Double check your math. I think that's very important. Okay, so let's go back over, and we got, I think, 2 more to do. Nina Smith wants to net, here we go, another net problem, a profit of $20,000 and agrees to pay a 7% commission. She also has expenses of $400 and a mortgage of $35,250. What is the minimum offer she could accept on the property? Well, we need to start with, what does she want to net? She wants to net $20,000. So that's what she wants to net. What are her expenses? Well, she has $400, doesn't she? Expenses. And she has a loan to pay off, which is $35,250. So we've got to add all of these up. So we're going to plus that, and we get $55,650. Now we work our T problem. Remember, because this is a seller net problem, we're going to take 100% minus the commission rate, which is 7% this time. And that's going to give us 93%, or 0.93. Now, we are solving for this number right here. So we put this 55,650, because it's a smaller number, on top. And when we divide when we put 55,650 in our calculator, our math tells us to divide 0.93, we get 59,838.71. And that would be answer A. It's the closest one. Okay? One more. Carrie Lesh, again, getting very creative because that's my wife's maiden name, wants to net a 12% profit after paying the brokerage firm a 6.5% commission. If the original purchase price was $104,500, what was the minimum offer they can or she could accept? I hate these kind of problems. I mean, I think I really was sick with the flu when they covered percentages and fractions, but this is awful. But we're going to solve it, okay? So, in our last problem, I wanted to have some fun, go out on a bang, right? So let's take a look at this. First thing we need to do is take the 100%. I want to do the 100%. And I'm going to subtract the 6.5%. And that's going to give me 93.5%, or when I move that over, 0.935. Okay, so we know we've got that, don't we? Now, the next part is that profit. And how do we get that? There's a couple of ways we can do that. And I'm just working that here, and that's the right way. So we've got to figure out what this 12% profit is. So if I do a little T problem here, and I do 104,500, and I multiply that times 0.12, that's going to give me $12,540. Now, I can add that, that's my profit. I can add that on this 104,500 because that was the original purchase price. And when I add that, I get 117,040. Okay? That now goes where? That allows us to put our t problem. 0.935 goes down here, and this goes right up here, which is 117,040. Our math tells us to divide, and when we take 117,040, divide it by 0.935, we get 125,176.47. And that would be answer C. So a lot of commission math problems tonight. I'm going to actually go in and edit, put these in the material. So they'll be in the review modules, and I'll also send you the link to the recording. Couple of things I will mention to you for those of you wherever you're at. Yes, I'm putting lots of new questions, as I mentioned at the beginning. I'm also uploading those modules. So if you're in module 16 or 17 or 18 or any of the other modules, please remember, like today, I added a bunch of new questions to module 15. If you're somewhere past module 19 or you are in your state material, yesterday I added a bunch of questions into module 19. You don't have to go back into those original modules. Remember, you have what are called review modules, and those allow you to jump around anywhere in the course material. So let's take a look at that real quick too, just so I can show you that here. Let's see. Whoops, there I am. How about that? There's a delay, so that's why you're seeing me there. And here we go. At least it's still broadcasting live, right? That's good to know. So I just wanted to show you this just to make sure that you understand this. In the review, now keep in mind I have a bunch of the courses in here because I've completed, and I thought I had the review modules in here. Let me go in and log out here. My apologies. I just want to show you this real quick. So let me log in as a learner. And so these are called review modules right here. Everybody should have these if you don't. You can actually go into these wherever you want. It doesn't matter. And so if you were studying for this, this is what I would encourage you to do. Maybe you want to watch some of these. You don't have to watch all of them. You can just go down here and take the exam. So I'm adding new questions to a lot of the modules, so feel free to go back in, and so you can exit out, and then if I wanted to go down to 15 because you said, oh, John added some new chapters. Again, I'm in the review module. You can just go into 15, and then all you have to do, rather than going through all these slides, because I know 15 was a real long module, what I would encourage you to do is just go over here to the menu and just drop all the way down and go to draw from chapter 15 database, and you'll see some new questions. Or, you know, if you want to just go in and start here, you can start the questions. Show you a couple of new questions I just added today. Let's see. It was this question here. It was a brand new one I added today because I don't talk about subprime loan. So, you know, if you're a high-risk borrower, you're considered a subprime loan, okay? This is another new one I added today. What's the major difference between an open mortgage and an open-end mortgage? And I hadn't seen this question, and I thought, well, it's a challenging question, but an open mortgage allows prepayment of the loan during the loan term. An open-end mortgage is expandable by increments up to the maximum dollar amount. Remember, it's kind of like a future advanced deed of trust. And here's another question. I thought this was challenging, and so this is a new one. A construction loan is an example of, well, it's a non-amortized loan because you're just drawing advances for what you're going to need to pay for the loan. So you can jump around anywhere you want to in the review modules. So I would very much encourage you to be sure and do that as well. Well, listen, I am here whenever you have questions. I appreciate your business. I appreciate you referring people to the school. That means so much to me. Thank you for that. And reach out to me if you have any questions. You can pass this test. John said, study hard and what? Study harder, okay? For every action, there is what? A reaction. I'm doing a video series right now that I'm for agents, and I have some things like that I'll provide for you to help you grow your business. But I'm doing a marketing series for agents on how to land more listings. And one of the things I talk about with these agents is Sir Isaac Newton's law of motion. And you get into a lot of that. Well, for every action, there's a reaction, right? And Newton's law said, and I love this, and I remind myself of this all the time, and I told the folks on the Land More Listings call that really it's how I got my real estate school up and going, and it's how I have accomplished some amazing things over the last few years in my life. But his law of motion, one of the laws says, whatever force you put into something, you will get an equal or a greater force in return, a reaction to that. And it basically means this: the more effort you put into something, you're going to get an equal or a greater return back. My daughter and I are prospecting for new listings, and we're sending out a lot of direct mail, and we're doing some creative things, and we're landing listings, and we're selling those. Now, key is you have to be consistent. You have to do it every day. But you have to remind yourself, whatever I put into something, I'll get an equal or greater return back. So you need to what? Study hard and study harder. You are a great group of students. This is really cool. I used to have to do this for 4 hours at the local junior college, and then I put a room in at my office from like 6 to 10, and then drive home. And now I can do this right from the comfort of my own basement and studio and record it so the students can rewatch it. But if you need anything, let me know. Have a great evening, get a good night's rest, and keep studying hard. And thank you so much. Bye.